Hey guys, Solid here and welcome back to another video. If I'm sounding a bit off, it's because I've got a sore throat, but I'm going to push through it and get into the video. So today we're rounding out the Unicorn Trilogy series. Yes, this is the final video in the series and we're talking about the mammoth of a topic, the magical 450 Rally. Yes, it's the most requested and most talked about bike in the Unicorn discussion in my channel, and I wanted to cover everything about the 450 Rally in today's video. Also, I wanted to remind you, if you got the attention span of a chimpanzee on a red cordial binge, I do put timestamps below so you can skip through my rambling. So let's get into all things Unicorn and roll that intro. So quickly before we jump into the main topic, I just wanted to thank everyone for the huge amount of positive feedback I received from my previous video. It was absolutely amazing to get all that positive feedback on basically me talking about the struggles I'd gone through over the last 3 years to get back into the dirt. So that was very humbling and I wanted to thank you for that. I also wanted to just say a quick shout out to all the people who are struggling out there with either health concerns or suffering injuries from major accidents. A lot of you reached out to tell me your own stories of struggle and hardship. So this video is dedicated to you guys and getting you through. I know it's not much, but it's the best I can offer. Just know that my thoughts and my positivity is aimed in your direction, and hopefully you'll have sunnier days and dirt in your future. So without further ado, let's get into the main part of the video. So what exactly is this 450 Rally bike and why is it so popular in the comment section and in the forums, and basically tops the list every time Unicorn discussion is broached? Well, basically the 450 Rally bike is the kind of bike you see raced in the Dakar Rally. The basic idea is something with a rally fairing, a nav tower, a bigger tank. It's an enduro bike with those additions. So generally speaking, when they race in the Dakar Rally, they will take an existing enduro bike from KTM, Honda, Yamaha, and they'll give it the rally bike treatment. And that's got a lot of people thinking and wanting that kind of bike for their dual sport and adventure riding. Now, you might ask yourself, why is that? Well, it combines two really great aspects of motorcycles. It's based off an enduro bike, so you have very lightweight, high performance engine and high performance suspension. So that makes even these bikes in their rally trim with a little more weight still very capable off-road. Think of a bike that is able to do single track but still many more things, so it's very appealing. And then on the other end of the spectrum, because it has that long range and that fairing for wind and weather protection, it also has some of the best aspects of an adventure bike. So if you're the kind of guy that likes to really hang with the enduro bikes and do single track, but you also want to do those long multi-day trips and maybe hang with your buddies on your Africa Twins and your GSs, then this is a bike that really potentially could do it all. When you can only afford one motorcycle, or maybe you don't have a trailer or a ute or a van, so you only have one bike and you have to ride to the trails and you want to do multi-day trips, then this rally bike really is the answer to those questions in a lot of ways. So what does this bike need to become the bike of our dreams? Well, I think the best place to start is, like with the Dakar Rally, start with the enduro bike. That way we get great performance out of the motor, we get great suspension straight out of the box, and the rest of the components are pretty high quality as well. But what do we need to add on to that to make it the Unicorn Rally bike? Well, I think the first thing is obvious, a big tank. That's a no-brainer. We need to go further, we need to go longer, we want to do multi-day trips. So a petrol tank that has increased capacity is going to be the best way of doing that. The next thing I think is kind of a three-part upgrade, and that is the nav tower with the windscreen, as well as maybe a small fairing. The small fairing is not so necessary, but I think the nav tower with the windscreen really is somewhere to mount your GPS, as well as your auxiliary inputs for powering other things and various switches, as well as that windscreen for protection from wind buffeting at high speeds, as well as a little weather protection for those longer multi-day trips. That is something I always wish I have on my dual sport when we hit the highway, when we've had to do long sections. Why has my life gone so long? So what else do we need? Well, I think the next obvious one is a taller 6 gear and overdrive. Now most enduros come with 6 gears, so I don't think it's beyond the realm of reason to imagine them to be able to tinker with that gearbox and make sixth gear a little more of an overdrive so that the bike is happy sitting at highway speeds. Now, it doesn't need to go much further than that, but as long as it's happy to sit on highway speeds, that would really lend itself to being far more comfortable at being able to bang out those kilometers or miles on those multi-day trips on the high-speed dirt sections and those highway sections that, let's face it, most of us have to do now to get to the trails. As urban sprawl gets bigger and bigger, we're living further and further away from the riding areas, so it makes sense that the bike is comfortable on the way to getting to the trails, because sometimes that's making up half of our rides. So an overdrive 6 I think is really needed here. The last one that I think is mandatory, I think it's mandatory, but you may not agree with it, so let me know in the comment section below, is a bigger oil capacity or some other kind of modification to the engine, maybe lowering the compression in order to extend those service intervals. I don't really care how they get to it, whether they lower the compression, tinker with the internals of the engine, maybe extend the engine casings to hold more oil. However they do it, just extend the service intervals, even by 1,000 kilometers, really could improve the experience of the rally bike. Because on a lot of these multi-day trips, if you go more than say 2,000 kilometers, which is easy to do, that's something you could easily knock out in a couple of days. You don't really want to be changing your oil on those rides. It can be done and you can plan with it and get used to it. But if we're asking ourselves, most of us default to the least amount of effort possible. So longer service intervals really opens up the variety of trips that we're able to do on these bikes. It also saves on maintenance costs as well. So I would really like to see extended service intervals on this rally bike. So those are the main things that I think we need to see to make this rally bike really successful. Just to recap, that is a bigger tank, the nav tower and windscreen setup, and maybe a fairing, maybe not. I don't really care about the fairing, but I know some people do, as well as that overdrive sixth gear and that extended service interval. I don't think that is beyond the realm of reason to accomplish. I think the extended service interval will require the most amount of effort, especially if they have to mess with the internals of the engine. It could get a little tricky with the R&D. But it can be done and without too much effort. They're not completely redesigning the bikes here. They're just adding on great additions. Now, of course, this will add cost. The enduro bikes are already fairly expensive, but with these added additions, it will be even more expensive. But I think those things that I have listed shouldn't make it too much more expensive when we're comparing it, especially to what KTM charge at the moment, which is well north of $50,000 here in Australia. So I think you can expect with those additions that possibly $2,000 more, maybe $3,000 over the base model enduro. And I think that's a fair ask when you're looking at the demographic of people wanting this bike. This clearly isn't an entry-level person's bike. This is for the kind of person, guy or girl, that's maybe had a good career, their kids are about to leave or have left home. Dementia and arthritis hasn't set in yet, and you've still got a few good earning years in your workplace, and you've got plenty of cash to throw around, and you've been riding for a while. So for those kinds of people, I don't think it would be that big of an ask to pay an extra couple of $1,000s on top of the EXC, when it's something you would probably do anyway in the aftermarket accessories category anyways. Now, to touch on why we haven't seen it before, I'm going to go back to the videos I was talking about before. It's kind of a mix of, sometimes we think our little silo or echo chamber is far bigger than it is. We're quite a small minority group in the manufacturing world. So when they're targeting bikes towards us, they're looking at us and thinking, we're not going to make much money out of this, as it's targeted to a small category within pretty much the Western market. So places like Australia, North America, and Europe. The Asian market really isn't all that interested in these high-end enduro rally kind of motorcycles. So I don't think manufacturers look at this as a big money maker. They're very risk averse and they're really wanting to make their shareholders happy. So that's why you see manufacturers following that method of building many motorcycles out of the same frame and engine components to lower the risk as much as possible and maximize profit. And this kind of rally bike I think it could be argued that you're kind of doing this when you're using an existing enduro bike. The problem is it's aimed for a very small minority group. So I think that's the major reason we haven't seen it. But maybe with enough videos and enough jawboning from me and comments from you guys, it will get done. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for this bike to really be made without too much trouble. We've seen manufacturers come very close. Of course, there are plenty of great options out there that already exist. Take this bike, for instance, the DRZ 400. With a little bit of creative thinking, you can chuck on a bigger tank, maybe get a nav tower for it, so something like the Adventure Rally X Mob. Whatever dual sport or enduro you've got, with a little bit of creative thinking and some spare cash on the side, you really can turn whatever bike you want into a great rally bike. And I think bikes like the DRZ, the CRF 450RL, the WR250R, and even the EXCs lend themselves to this kind of bike. Upgrade the suspension on some of them and you really can have a lot of fun. And that's my motto is, while we do want better bikes all the time and we really want our consumer demands to be met, there is no point sitting on the sideline and watching time go by. You should be getting out and into the dirt as soon as you can and getting the bike that is available now. Of course, you don't have to sign anything in blood. Just because you buy a DRZ like me and something comes out down 6 months, a year down the road that you like better, there's nothing to say you can't sell the DRZ and upgrade. So don't get it in your head that the bike you buy now you have to stick with for the end of time. That's part of the fun, is moving through different kinds of bikes and going on the journey. You sure know how many bikes I've gone through lately and will continue to probably go through. So I wanted to end on that positive note that while we might not have a rally bike straight off the showroom floor that exactly meets our needs, we are getting closer. The CRF 300 Rally is an example of that. So until then, ride the bike you've got at the moment, enjoy yourself and get out in the dirt.